Hello, lovelies. It's Yvie here, Two Girls, One Pod. Just me today because Angie's a little bit sick this week. So we thought it would be a good idea to take a trip down memory lane and have a few best-ofs. Sit back and listen to our episode where we spoke about living together. We spoke about our foster dogs and some of our time on Gogglebox. Enjoy.
Girl, did you see me post the other day? I had a little trip down memory lane with a sissy, an old sloppy bollocks.
Oh, my God.
It was so cute. And then obviously the dress-up one, and there was Baked Bean where I'm wrangling him in. And then the quote that
Baked Bean sitting there like that.
He never thought anything was weird, did he?
No, he was just like, I don't care as long as I'm close to you, as long as I'm near humans. You could swing naked off the Empire State Building and I wouldn't give a shit.
He's one of the only dogs that doesn't fit the meme when you get rescued from the pound or wherever and your owner is batshit crazy.
It turns out your owner is batshit crazy. I mean, you know what? I think that goes with a lot of rescue dogs. I mean, they're not even rescue dogs. People buy dogs and the dogs are like, oh, my God, what they see. You know, they're in there while you're shitting. They're in there while you're showering. They're in there while you're looking at things.
Oh, my God. If our dogs could talk, so when Yvie and I lived together with Tom, which we'll speak about another time, we lived in Stanmore in a house with a man called Tom and we rescued we had a wall, remember, like a shrine
we did.
To our rescue dogs.
We went way over 35. I think we were close to 40 dogs.
No, I thought remember we counted one time and I swear we got up to 100.
Did we?
There was so many. I think you forget about all the little ones that would come and go.
Yeah, like the overnight ones. Yeah, there's a lot.
We had like 100 or something. Not at once, obviously.
No. At one time we once had 8.
That was a lot.
I think 8 is a little, 8 is a much.
I think I
may have overcommitted.
I overcommitted.
I probably could have had 5. But we couldn't say no. There was an influx at the time. We used to volunteer for a charity. It's not even a charity. It's a non-for-profit called Pause and Recover, which was created by this amazing policewoman called Jackie who kept going to call-outs. She was a cop at King's Cross Station. She'd go to domestic violence call-outs or she'd go to drug overdoses or things like that where, you know, the humans would be taken care of, but the dogs wouldn't, pets wouldn't. So there was this massive demand for something that had no supply. Like there just wasn't anything out there where the rescues were rescues and, you know, everything else, adoption was adoption, but there was nowhere where it was just fostering where you could look after someone's dog who was in a little bit of trouble and then give it back to them. There wasn't a service like that existed. So she made it. And I think I started volunteering there with her. I think she was only about 4 years in when I moved in with Tom and found out that he liked dogs. We lived in a house and I was like, oh, you like dogs? I like dogs. And then we started fostering dogs. No, you moved in and we started fostering dogs really quickly. Like our very first one, Charlie Bear, was just after you first moved in. So it was brilliant.
And I would dress him up in a little girl's clothes, even though he was a little boy, because we would think our dogs could be whoever they wanted to be.
But yeah, we had Charlie was our very first one, who ended up going to my dad as an adoption to my mum and dad, and only just died last year. So
we palmed 2 off to your dad, Rocky and Charlie. We're like, we've got these dogs we've had for about 6 months and they ain't going nowhere. Do you want them? And we would just thrust these dogs onto people and they loved them.
Yeah, we were the ones that couldn't go back.
Like because of jail or mental health, or they didn't have the money. And we ended up spending, you know, a lot of people think that you're getting paid by these people to look after these dogs, but we would spend all our money on food. Sometimes Yvie would be spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on vet bills.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the donations.
No, that's right. We're volunteers. They're non-for-profit. It was a given to me. You just spend whatever you can to help a dog's life. But something I have not told a lot of people, the reason that I even have the absolute, you know, people know how obsessed I am with dogs. And it's a well-known thing. You know, anyone that follows my Instagram just knows.
Wall-to-wall dogs.
But you know how that came to be? I'm sure I've told you before, but I've never, ever said it publicly. I grew up in quite a violent house, and my father was the violent one, and he would be quite abusive to my brother and I. And my brother would then be abusive to me because I was younger, and I would be abusive to the dog.
Yeah, I remember this.
I never thought of that until I was an adult, and then I remembered it, and I was still to this day mortified. Like it breaks me to even go to those memories of what happened to me, what happened to that dog, you know. I remember thinking I will do whatever it takes to save as many dogs' lives. Not that I took any dogs' lives.
No.
But just the thought of smacking a dog the way I would be smacked, because that's all I knew. When you were stressed and you were angry with the world, you hit that, you know, in such an innocent soul would cop that in any way. I vowed right then and then to do whatever I could for the rest of my life, to dedicate it to making these beings, these things that make us feel so incredible. You know, the love. I know so many people in you, Ange, listening to this right now. What have your pets done for you?
Yeah.
How much love have you ever felt from a human? What you have felt from you know, Cassie or Ruby, you know, or Stella, or all of the dogs, Sissy, when she sees you.
It's unconditional.
There's nothing. It is the most unconditional love I've ever felt in my entire life. And I swear to God, they have saved my life so many times. And it's, you know, people think I'm crazy because I go to a park and I can't stop wanting to hug every single dog in there.
I know. And
you know, some people
them.
are just into one dog or one type of dog. I'm like, no, I've got to touch as many as I can.
Isn't that so true, though, you saying that, is that dogs aren't just dogs to people who really love dogs. They are your source of love that you may have never received as a child or as an adult, and that it's unconditional. And humans judge you or have bad moods, where dogs just love you. And I remember you coming home, remember when I'd had really bad depression or whatever it was, I can't remember, and you held Tiny and you just opened the door, and I didn't come out of my room for a few days because I was really bad, and then you just put this tiny little dog on my bed. And we often said that these dogs, we didn't rescue these dogs, they rescued us, because people were like, how do you afford that, or how do you give them back? It's like, I'd rather have them any day of the week than never have them at all.
Exactly.
Because they helped me more than I helped them.
And you see that in homeless people, you know, who are on the street with these dogs, and they are keeping them alive. They're literally keeping them alive with warmth, with unconditional love, and keeping their sanity going.
They are. It gives you a purpose. It does. It gives you something to get up for if you're feeling down, to look after, something that loves you so much. We love dogs.
Oh, dogs.
We love dogs so much. Ew. Look how much we talk about dogs. We're so weird. This is why we don't have partners.
We don't need partners. We've got dogs and each other.
Because we've always said that. We were like, we've got each other and so much love. The love between the two of us and the love between these dogs is like, sometimes I'm like, too much love.
I'm being overwhelmed by all the love.
It hurts me. It hurts.
I'm drowning in love. You need to keep checking your TikToks, because I keep sending you TikToks. I haven't stopped, even though you've stopped being on there. You need to go, and especially the last one that I sent, and it'll have something to do with splits. Anyway, back to the show.
I go check my TikToks, and I've got 400 like messages from Yvie, and I let them back.
You know.
Yeah, I know. They're good.
You know they're always going to be good.
They're good, but I don't like going on it, girl, because I get stuck in such a TikTok hole for hours, and I just don't have that kind of time right now.
I know. You know what? Just look at the 400 I send you.
No, because I go off on random ones where I look at
Don't do that. Just look at the ones that I send you.
I go looking at boys that do that freaking. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, it drives us insane.
What's the song they do? It's like the. And they pretend they're getting handcuffed and they're like.
Oh, that one. Yeah, where these boys, in case anyone doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, these boys, they do these weird-ass videos where they pretend to be getting pushed up against a wall by police, but it's their own hands pushing them up against, and then they look at the camera, and they do sexy face.
I can't.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
It makes me...
I think we should do our own
It makes
video.
me itchy. Ew, imagine you and I try pretending to handcuff each other and then doing sexy faces to the camera.
The best part of those videos is the people that have taken the piss out of those videos, and you see them, and then there's these two guys that took the piss out of those videos, and the bloopers of said videos of them taking the piss out of those videos
I don't mind
is very
those.
good videos.
I don't mind those. But you know what that reminds me of, those types of sicko videos, is absolutely anything we would ever get up to when we lived together for 4 years. 3 years. 3 years? 4 years.
Absolutely.
Oh, who knows?
Yeah, I don't even know. I lived in that house for about 7.5, 8 years.
That's such a
and
long
you lived
time.
there for about 3.
I lived there permanently for 3, but then I would come and go from London to Sydney. And then remember, I moved to London and you needed a lot of more help because usually you would just keep my room free.
Yes.
And then I would come and go and stay on the couch when I was house sitting, in between house sits.
That's right.
So it was probably about 4 years, really. But the house Yvie and I are speaking of is actually a house where a beautiful man named Thomas Hancock, he has Down syndrome and type 2 diabetes, and Yvie originally moved in with him through a different friend. We won't name his name. And then he got the boot, and Yvie and I had just become friends, and she was buttering me up. She was buttering me up to be the next housemate.
We met while we were doing promo. I was Mrs. Claus, you were my elf. That story is for another time.
That was a magical story.
We would laugh our asses off at things, and I would pick you up from I was living in the Cross, and you would come to the station, and I'd pick you up from there, and
King's
we'd go.
Cross Station.
Very long trip from the Cross to Miranda and Westfields, and we'd laugh our heads off. Remember, sometimes we'd take Tony. Hey!
Stop.
Do you remember sometimes we take Tony Pepperoni back home?
Our token
in the car
gay
with us,
friend. We loved him.
He was really out there himself, but even he couldn't handle sometimes the crap that would come out of our mouth.
He left.
So
I stayed.
He did. She stayed. I stayed. We stayed.
We both stayed.
And then I started to test you.
Did you ever? Those testings. Now I look back and I was like, what a fool. I pity the fool.
What a fool.
I didn't see those testings coming. You were buttering me up real good. Tell me about these testings.
I would say I had to do something, which I did.
Oh, yes, you did. I know exactly what you had to do.
I would ask you to come and stay the night and look after the dogs and Tom. If Tom was there and I was testing to see, and then I kind of hit you with you should move in, you could totally do this. Like, you've already done it. You're already
Tom loves
basically
you.
Yeah, he did. He loved you.
Oh,
he loved you more than he's loved anyone he's ever lived with. I mean, he was in love with you. He loved you like a sister. He loved you like he was obsessed, and rightly so. My God,
I was so
just to get those sweet, sweet hugs from you. You gave him so much attention, and you did so many things for him. And I would just roll my eyes and go, "Girl, you don't have to do any of that." He would jingle his glass
in
for
my
you to go and get him.
And I'd go, do you want more milk?
Water.
More water? Okay, yep. You'd be like, that's not your job. You're his housemate / you check on his diabetes. Yeah. You are not his carer.
The whole setup, the whole setup with that house was independent living for Tom. Tom has type 1 diabetes and he has Down syndrome. And because of his, can you hear that?
Yeah,
Can
what
anyone
was that?
hear that? Oh, they've decided to start building a building clearly right next to my house.
What assholes.
But maybe it's finished. There was it. Oh, it looks good. The building's up. It's great.
It's done. Finished. Ta-da.
So the model of the house was an independent living house where Tom could live on his own. So he would live with kind of live-in carers who were flatmates. So he just lived as if he was just living in a share house.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a group home, which is pretty much all there is for disability adults.
His mum worked hard on that model.
Yeah. So, and they're still working on that, trying to get that out when, people who didn't have a disability could go and live in this situation and look after in exchange for rent.
Yes.
It was great. It was a great setup.
To do a long story short, you know what you can do? You can go check out the documentary I made back in 2015 called Tom's Plan.
Yeah.
And it features me, Yvie Jones, Thomas, and just Oscar and Leo back then. But that shows the whole model. Actually, we'll put that on our notes. I look excellent. I've got like a mullet and zero top lip. I look the best I've ever looked, personally.
I think that's when you had really short hair because I cut it at
cut it.
Australia Day. But that's for another time as well.
Anyway, that's for the...
So we lived in that situation for a while until you went travelling, and then I had to get a new flatmate in the end. We had to fill in the house. We had to fill in.
We
but
did.
During that time that we lived together, we got on Gogglebox. That time
we did.
Fostered 1 billion dogs.
We did.
We worked part-time, full-time.
Yep.
I think you worked full-time at some point.
I did off and on. I was at Paramount Pictures, and then I was like that. Remember, I was at Shootster as like a full-time production coordinator. Doing that and Gogglebox and having Tom and having the dogs, let's just say it was a lot. There was a lot of mini... And that's when I used to drink white wine too and didn't know I was a celiac. Monster!
And that's right. And you used to eat dairy as well.
Yeah.
So there was all sorts of things going wrong with you.
Eating disorder on fleek.
We weren't just flatmates. We weren't just carers. We weren't just this really... We were a really weird...
Modern family,
and we would go on holidays together. We would go road trips. We would do things. We would go to the pub together, at the three of us, or And
whatever. Tom didn't drink, but he'd pretend to get drunk. Oh, bless him! And it would make him be like, "Tom, that's you." He'd be like, "This is my beer." It'd just be sparkling water, and he'd scull it, and he'd be like, "I'm drunk." And what do you do when you're drunk? And he's like Angie. And I'm like, Tom, that was one time.
Oh, he's so good. He was so good. We still FaceTime him. You FaceTime him a lot more. I'm dreadful. But God, that was good times living together, wasn't it? Good times.
I have so many memories pop up on my phone. And, I moved in with you when I was only like 24. So all my girlfriends were still living in Sydney. And we would have like full parties in the backyard. And Tom was about 32. So he's 10 years older than me. So he would have been 34. Yeah. And he just loved it, being there with all these my friends is all bloody gorgeous. He'd be there with all these 10s and he'd be loving himself. So he'd come out with his shirt off, and I would treat Tom as if he was just another one of my best mates or my brother, or there was a lot of people would kind of tiptoe around that or be like, oh, you can't speak to him like that. And it was like, I will speak to him how he would want me to speak to him, which is just like me. And we really made him, it wasn't me and you and our mate Tom that needed to be cared for. It was the three of us, and we were a real family. That also had to, obviously, we'd wake up through the night, Tom screaming from having a hypoglycemic attack, and you'd have to shove a needle in him and put food in his mouth, and we'd both be on. That's
the biggest misconception about when people meet Tom. They think that, he has carers for his Down syndrome, and he doesn't.
No.
His Down syndrome is fine. He has carers because he needs to check his blood, 12 times a day or more, and he needs to have injections 3 times a day. And
you have to monitor him.
6 meals a day, and you have to make sure that that's all coinciding with it itself. Not coinciding. Sorry, you have to make sure that that's all working really well together, like a fine-tuned machine.
It was like a job in itself, but it was a job that you loved because it was like looking after your family member. God.
It was funny because we got Gogglebox while we lived together.
Yeah.
And we just assumed they would want Tom
Yeah.
as well, the three of us on that show. And a lot of people don't know that Tom was in the house while we'd be filming. I mean, most families would like a lot of families, not most, some of the Gogglebox families would have other people in the house that, you know, they don't know about, like children or partners. But we had Tom. Tom would be in his room, watching football or watching something friggin' loud.
So loud. We'd be like, Tom.
And we'd be filming. But we always just assumed they'd eventually bring Tom in. I always thought it was a shame that they didn't bring Tom in. I mean, it would have just been Tom asleep on the lounge most of the time, to be fair.
He'd never want to watch the stuff we watch. Could you imagine? He'd be like, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
There's no filter. And also because Tom's quite hard to understand, he could speak not through us, like he could speak, but if people didn't understand, we would then say, oh, he's asked for this. So it would be that constant backwards and forwards of that, which we don't mind doing. But I think in a show sense, to be a chop, because it's such a choppy show, you couldn't do it. But he was there and he'd often come out and go 1, 2, 3, action. And if you look really closely in the back, you can sometimes see Tom standing at the door.
Yeah, or his shadow walking up the hall from where we've yelled at him to get back to his room.
So if anybody is avid Gogglebox watchers, which I know a lot of people have been in lockdown, just
between season 1 and 8, if you look closely, you can see Tom
You'll see
just
Tommy
lurking in the background.
Oh, he's so funny. But we went to Bali together as a threesome. That sounded weird. As the three best friends that anyone could have. And then I went to the UK with him, which was a hefty journey. I remember he was so naughty. He wanted to sit in the middle. And I was just like, no, I'll sit in the middle because he'll just fall asleep. And he kept trying to talk to the guy next to him. And sometimes if you're not used to that, people get quite overwhelmed with, not knowing how to respond to Tom. And then me whipping out these big needles and checking his blood, drawing blood from him every 2 hours on a 17, 20-hour flight. And I'd get up and he'd sneak next to the person, start talking to them. I'm like, Tom, they're asleep. Yeah. Oh, it was such a...
He'd be so excited.
Yeah, he loved
travelling.
He did.
Loves travelling.
It's because he did.
We have to go on holidays again. I reckon we'd still be able to go on holidays with Tom.
Yeah. Oh, my God. He would love it.
We should.
And then you went to Fiji with him as well. God, he
I
seriously
did Fiji.
lives...
We went to Bali a few times.
Yeah.
He used to have... His parents had a house in the snow. We used to go there with him, which was fun. It was a shame you never got to come to that. That was a lot of fun.
And he came to Sunshine Coast.
Oh, yeah.
And hung out with me and my fam. Oh, look, Tom's part of the family. He's the best. We'll actually add a photo, if you guys haven't seen, of us three together, just to, give you a little glimpse into the madness of our modern day family. It was such a good time.
And we'll slowly have to bring up memories of videos and things,
Oh.
If for the future, we'll just start popping up videos of the three of us.
Everybody I know.
We've got years worth.
We do. And people know somebody that is, not able-bodied or care for people themselves. So it's nice to talk about this and know that, we've been there, we loved it, and it's a little part of our lives that we'll cherish forever.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap. Boom.